Hey everyone, how's it going? So UFC Fight Night Edwards vs Brady just wrapped up, and this was an interesting card to say the least. So I'm just going to run through the whole card, give you guys a recap, and let's just jump straight into it. And opening the prelims and the first fight on the card was Guram Kutateladze versus Kaue Fernandes. I predicted that Kutateladze was going to get this one done by a decision, because I kind of suspected that, you know, he had Ilya, he had Alexandra Tybura in his corner. I think he had Kamza in his corner as well. I was like, there's no way. And he looked pretty good prior to this performance, but Fernandes actually won this one. He got this one done by a decision though, so nothing too dominant. But anyway, round one opens up. Fernandes comes out and he just starts chopping the legs, mainly the calf, but also other parts of the leg of Guram. Guram blitzes in and he'll get the occasional punch, but often he'll blitz in and then get caught with a counter or a combination on the way out. And then it gets to the point where at the end of the round, Guram gets dropped with an overhand. And this is after it's already been dropped by a kick. So Fernandes secures that round. Second round comes in. Guram starts to pick up the pace, but isn't really able to get into the swing of things. And he'll often get caught whenever he comes in. The leg kicks actually start to add up to the point where he switches stance. And then once Fernandes just keeps targeting that leg, Guram's legs give out and he falls backwards and tries to sort of pull guard on the floor like a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people in the UFC. And yeah, overall he just got outstruck that whole round. Round 3, Guram's down 2 rounds, but it doesn't even matter because Fernandes just keeps targeting that leg. Same thing happens, he falls backwards, tries to pull guard. While he's on the floor, Fernandes just keeps kicking his legs. Stands up on the feet, gets pieced up. Fernandes looked really good this fight, and I think like everyone should keep an eye on him in the UFC because I thought he was just a rookie, but he actually has a lot of skill, and to beat Kutateladze, that's no easy task. Anyway, Kutateladze lost this one. Fernandes won 30-27. It was a pretty good domination, and yeah, next fight. Moving up the prelims, we have Nathan Fletcher versus Caolan Loughran. Now, I actually predicted that Nathan Fletcher would get this one done by a third round finish. I was wrong. Caolan Loughran actually won this one. Granted, it was by a split decision, and we'll get into it, but I don't really agree. I think Fletcher won, but you'll see. Round 1 opens, and Fletcher gets hit with a few stiff jabs from Loughran, which establishes sort of a base damage for the round. Outside of that, Fletcher keeps targeting the calf of Loughran, which sort of starts to show damage later in the round. And Loughran sort of starts shooting these takedowns, which actually win him the round. So 1-0 Loughran. Into the second round, Fletcher comes out and instantly takes Loughran down. And for the rest of round 2, he's sort of maintaining this back and side control where he's just constantly landing ground and pound. He's targeting the head, the body, sort of ripping into that body, especially with Loughran, draining the cardio very, very quickly. And I think it's 1-1 taking out of that round into the third. Loughran gets a few takedowns and he actually gets back control on a standing Fletcher where he's sort of trying to sink in this rear naked. Fletcher sort of loosens his body triangle and Loughran sort of drops down and they sort of flip around into a clinch against a cage where they just start throwing at each other. And I think this is where Fletcher wins the round. He sort of does more damage in this last minute of just throwing. He lands this one elbow that does like a bunch of damage, sort of wobbles Loughran and cuts him open. But overall, that round ends. It goes to the card, split decision. Loughran won just basically based on control time. But I think Fletcher did a bit more damage and deserved to win. But either way, close fight. Not going to complain about that one. And next up on the card is Shauna Bannon versus Puja Tomar. Now, I predicted that Puja Tomar would get this one done by a decision win. I didn't expect anything too crazy out of this one. I was wrong pretty much in every department there. Shauna Bannon won this one, and it was not by a decision. So round 1 opens up, and Bannon's spamming these side kicks and using a sort of height advantage and reach advantage to, you know, the max she can. All she threw this fight pretty much was these side kicks that would sort of connect with the stomach. They weren't anything like John Jones did to Stipe where Puja Tomar's bending over like about to throw up. It was just more of a distance mechanism because Puja Tomar's best weapon this fight was sort of blitzing in and throwing these combos and hoping to clip Bannon, you know, when she's in the pocket and then maybe find distance. It was very hard to do that when Bannon constantly sort of had this side kick to maintain distance, and you know, whenever Tomar would be backing out of the pocket, sometimes she'd get hit in the head by a kick from Bannon. So Bannon was actually dominating the first round until Tomar kicks Bannon. I thought it was the inside leg. Apparently it was a groin shot, but Bannon didn't really seem to be in that much pain from it, so I don't know. But they called it, she got some time out, and the minute the fight continues back on, Puja Tomar just comes in crazy and just starts throwing these big shots that are sort of dazing Bannon and making her so weak at the knees and stuff and like back up. round ends, round 2 starts, same thing as last round. Bannon keeps calling for these groin shots, which, I mean, she's fighting perfectly fine. I don't know if they're landing or not, I wasn't really paying that much attention, but every like 2 minutes it was a different groin shot. And then out of nowhere, Tomar lands his head kick that puts Bannon out. And when I mean out cold, like Volkanovski out cold, when he fought Ilya. The rest must have had money on Bannon because he just let it continue. Even with the ground and pound, Bannon had like no defense. She wasn't defending herself. But then out of nowhere, she must have had like quick revive or something because she just revives. And from here, she grabs Puja Tomar's arm and yanks this armbar, which she eventually sort of rolls over and sinks in and wins the fight for a second round sub. But oh my god, I thought that was over with the head kick, and I think it should have been. But, you know, good win for Shauna Bannon. Yeah, not much else to say. I'm in shock with that one. Next up on the prelims was Christopher Leroy Duncan versus Andrey Pulyaev. This one was a bit of a stinker. So I predicted that Christopher Leroy Duncan would find a finish. I predicted in the second round. Christopher Leroy Duncan did win this one, but it was by a pretty boring decision. Round 1 opens up and Duncan starts pretty strong. He's sort of throwing everything he can right off the bat, throwing like these kicks, these crazy shots, just really mixing it up. And then he shoots in a takedown and holds Pulyaev against a cage, sort of for the rest of the round. It breaks occasionally and they'll be sort of switching up on who's sort of pushed up against a cage, but that first round mainly was Duncan applying pressure to Pulyaev against the cage. He won that one. Second round, Duncan just looks more comfortable in the octagon, throwing way more volume. A lot of it's missing because Pulyaev is sort of just doing circles around the outside. He's sort of stalling. It was a weird situation where he didn't throw anything, but he also didn't really get hit because he was constantly just circling the octagon. It's like he was just trying not to get injured, regardless of whether he actually landed anything. Hard round to score, but probably Duncan. I don't know if there's a rule where you can't, you know, timidness. Bisping actually mentioned on the commentary booth that he could actually get a point deducted for being too timid and not engaging in the fight. So anyway, round 3 opens and it actually starts pretty decent for Pulyaev, where he clinches Duncan up against the cage and sort of holds him there, but he's already 2 rounds down. It's too late now. Into the third, Duncan sort of pushes off and starts landing heavy on Pulyaev, and he does some crazy damage with an elbow late in the fight that almost puts him down and finishes him if he had a few more seconds. But round 3 ends, Duncan takes a pretty boring decision. This fight was probably the worst one on the card, I'll be honest. And it's not really Duncan's fault, it's just, yeah, unfortunate. But anyway, Duncan got that one. Good fight, I guess. Yeah. Next up is Marcin Tybura versus Mick Parkin. I predicted that Mick Parkin would get this one done by a first round knockout following sort of all his other first round knockouts. I was actually wrong. Mick Parkin lost this one to a decision against Marcin Tybura. Round 1, pretty even round, but I think Marcin Tybura sort of outscored in this one. He was landing, his new style was sort of Muay Thai inspired, where he'll land these body kicks, leg kicks, he'll sort of do these straight jabs to the head, which were landing on Parkin and probably did more damage that round. And just to finish it off, he does get a takedown at the very end and holds him there for about 30-ish seconds. So, you know, that one sort of gave that to him. Round 2, Parkin takes down Tybura pretty much instantly and maintains top position for the majority of the round. And throughout this, he's just constantly moving around, switching position to try and get this submission. He doesn't actually get any of them in, but he does keep threatening them, which opens up these opportunities for Parkin to sort of ground and pound Tybura, which he does a lot. And he almost actually finishes Tybura with ground and pound halfway through this round, to the point where his corner's standing up, like celebrating, because they think they've done it. Tybura hangs in, but either way, Mick Parkin dominated that round. Definitely went to him. Round 3 is the swing round. Coming into the third, Parkin and Tybura are both gassed. So on the feet, then when they're landing, it's not really doing much, and they're not even throwing that much. I'd say Tybura was slightly edging it out prior to like the last 30 seconds. He was landing more. He was doing a tiny bit more damage, but once again, both gassed, not much damage, full stop. And then in the last 30 seconds, Mick Parkin throws a leg up. Tybura catches it and tries to take him down. And while he's trying to take him down, Mick Parkin just goes ham on Tybura's head. Starts throwing everything he's got. He actually kind of wobbles him at one point and gets him very dazed, which I think if he had another like 10 to 15 seconds, he would have finished him. Bell goes. That's that. Goes to the cards. Tybura won. I don't know whether it was a split decision or not. but Tybura wins a decision. I don't think so. I think Parkin won round 2 and 3, but, you know, I guess it's subjective. But yeah, good win for Tybura. Good to see his striking's improved. And the next fight. Next up on the card, we have Loughran Kavanagh versus Felipe dos Santos. Now, I predicted that Loughran Kavanagh was going to get this one done by a decision win. I was spot on. Round 1 starts. Both fighters come out fast. Kavanagh's sort of showing bits of weakness. He gets clipped with this one right hook at the start of the fight that sort of not drops him completely, but he bends at the knees, has to regain balance. They clinch up against a cage, and dos Santos kind of gets warnings very early in the fight and very quickly between each other about sort of keeping his fingers in the cage and then also reaching with his fingers towards Kavanagh's eyes. I don't know dos Santos' history with illegal sort of moves, but it became a trend with this fight, which I didn't really like. At the end of the round, dos Santos lands his spinning elbow on Kavanagh, which is probably the most damaging shot of that fight because it cuts open Kavanagh's sort of hairline and causes blood to trickle down Kavanagh's face. He was sort of getting outstruck on the feet as well, and I think dos Santos did prove more dominant in that first round. Second round, midway through the second round, when pushed up against a cage, Kavanagh just starts throwing wildly at dos Santos, and dos Santos starts throwing back. But Santos is sort of getting clipped more often and with more powerful shots, to the point where halfway through he dives in and tries to take Kavanagh down. He actually succeeds, but Kavanagh reverses this, gets top position, and from top position Kavanagh dominated in this fight. He was landing these stiff jabs from top, he was landing these crazy powerful shots from top that would bounce dos Santos' head off the canvas, and he was just landing them not as consistent as dos Santos was throwing up from bottom position, but with way more power. Like, I'm surprised that dos Santos didn't get knocked out from ground and pound in this fight. Anyway, he did this for the rest of round 2, so that was definitely a Kavanagh round. Round 3, it came down to Kavanagh was outlanding on the feet. He found some confidence in the feet and was actually outstriking dos Santos. And he'd even go in and just pick up dos Santos and slam him on the ground, take him down. And in this round, dos Santos did get 2 more warnings. One for kicking a grounded opponent. He was sort of kicking up when Kavanagh's knees were on the ground. And then the other time was for targeting the spine. He was sort of elbowing down on the spine of Kavanagh, which you're not allowed to do. And overall, just Kavanagh dominated that round as well, both wrestling and striking wise, taking home a 29-28 unanimous decision. And he showed a lot of improvement in this fight compared to his McCann fight, where he wasn't as impressive. This one was a very dominant performance, and I really liked this fight. And closing out the prelims, we have Herbert versus Chris Padilla. Now, I predicted that Chris Padilla would get this one done. I said round 2 submission. He did actually win, but it wasn't as an impressive win as I thought it would be. Starting off the fight, round 1, very low volume round. Jai and Chris were both throwing very little, and what they were throwing was mainly just damage to the legs, damage to the bodies, a lot of kicks from Herbert. Padilla was sort of throwing these jabs and stuff, but either way, no one really inflicted much damage on each other, and Padilla only really took the round by clinching up Herbert against the cage for about a minute or so near the end. Round 2, Jai picks up the pace a little bit. He's actually landing a bit more, but Padilla is also catching him on the way out with these sort of counter strikes while Jai's sort of exiting the pocket. And once again, Herbert just gets held up against the cage for a good part of the round. I scored at 2-0 Padilla. This one was a bit closer than the first. This was probably the swing round when it came to the decision. Round 3, Jai starts landing a good combination. He starts sort of opening up this cut on Padilla's head, which eventually, at the end of the fight, is this massive gash above the eyebrow. And he is piecing up Padilla on the feet, but it's too little too late. Padilla's already won the first round, arguably won the second, and when the split decision comes down, Padilla takes it. Very close fight, but not much happened, so it's just mainly hard to score. Yeah, Padilla won this one. And opening the main card, we had Nathaniel Wood versus Morgan Charriere. Now, I predicted that Morgan Charriere would find an opening and finish Wood in the second round, I think I predicted, but definitely a knockout. That didn't happen. Nathaniel Wood actually took this to a decision and won, which I was pretty surprised about. Round 1, Wood tagged Charriere very early in the fight with a hook that landed very clean and put him down. And then he also landed an overhand which almost had him out, and he couldn't quite finish it off on the ground. Charriere had a moment to sort of gain some composure on the ground and got top position and landed some good shots, but getting dropped twice in one round, he obviously lost that. Wood took that one. Round 2, Charriere is landing here and there, but is also getting caught with the occasional power shot from Wood. And I was worried that this would happen to Wood, that Wood would leave openings to get knocked down or knocked out. but it was actually Charriere who would like go into the pocket and then land maybe a good jab cross combo, but then on the way out get hit with an overhand that would drop him. This one was very close though. There was a lot of trading, like one shot for one shot, and it was just dependent on really who brought more power. But I do think Wood did often outpower Charriere in these exchanges. Round 3, Wood slows down a little bit, like he stops throwing as much, and this is where Charriere starts throwing up the volume, both of his punches, and he starts throwing kicks to the body and the head. None of them are really landing though, and it wasn't a round with very much definitive moments. I think Wood ends up taking that round as well, although I could see how he could score it for Charriere. But overall, Wood fraud checks Charriere. I've never seen Charriere look so vulnerable in a fight. The decision win to Wood, though, just proves that Charriere needs to work on a few things. But yeah, that was that fight. Pretty fun fight, but not much to write home about. And next up on the main card, we had Jordan Vucenic versus Chris Duncan. Now, I actually predicted that Chris Duncan would take this one by a decision, which was kind of a ballsy pick because he was a pretty heavy underdog coming into this. But I actually just saw potential in his grappling and his wrestling, and he actually did submit Jordan Vucenic in the second round. So I'd like to say I was decently correct with this one. Round 1, Duncan lands this kick followed by a straight right sort of combo that knocks Vucenic down and sort of stuns him on the ground, and then Duncan wastes no time in jumping on top of him and trying to secure a guillotine from top position. Vucenic slips out of it, but Duncan maintains this top position, landing some elbows, and then he maneuvers to the back, and then right as they're about to sort of stand and bang, Vucenic gets slammed. Duncan picks him up, slams him, and just dominates him on the floor for the rest of the round. Very obviously a Chris Duncan round. Round 2, on the feet, Duncan right hand keeps landing on Vucenic's chin and taking Vucenic down, and he sort of maintained dominant position for a little bit at the start. They got back to the feet, and Vucenic actually started to fight back on the feet. He was landing some seriously good strikes on Duncan, and he was sort of doing a bit of damage. Duncan got cut open a bit, I think. It was looking pretty bad, but then Vucenic kept shooting off for takedowns whenever he'd sort of get a bit panicked, which led to, on one of them, he sort of shot this double leg, and Duncan just locked up a guillotine and jumped it and submitted him within the second round. I actually believe Vucenic might have won this one if he didn't sort of panic shoot, but either way, very smart from Duncan. He called out Terrence McKinney at the end, which I actually really like that matchup. I don't really talk about early sort of main card or unranked fighters' next fights, but screw it, I'd love to see Terrence McKinney versus Chris Duncan. Let's run that one up. And also, I don't know if it's true, but apparently Vucenic now needs to get a tattoo of Duncan's nickname on his rear end. Don't know if that's true, but I hope it is. Next fight. Moving on, we have Molly McCann versus Alexia Thainara. Now, I predicted that Alexia Thainara would win this one. I said that would be by decision, and I pictured it would be pretty close because Thainara is pretty new. She's just coming off the Contender Series. Molly McCann's a seasoned veteran. I thought they were going to make it close, but I thought Alexia Thainara's grappling advantage would really carry her to the win, and I was pretty correct. Thainara did win this one, but it was by submission early on, so I really underestimated her, I guess. So just getting into the fight, first of all, the crowd loved Molly. I think Molly got the biggest reception out of the whole card, maybe outside of Leon. Leon got a pretty big pop, but everyone was chanting Molly's name at the start of the fight. Unfortunately, she was getting sort of outstruck on the feet very early on, and she resorted to sort of taking it to the ground. And she was actually holding her own decently to start with, and it gave me the impression that she'd worked on her ground game. She was laying these elbows from bottom that were clearly like sort of distracting Thainara, wasn't letting her sort of pass guard. She was very concerned about not getting elbowed in the head. But then Thainara just had top position for a large majority of that round, and then she rolled around to the back and just pretty much instantly synced in a rear naked choke. Molly got out of one that was in very, very tight, and then as soon as she got out of that one, Thainara sunk in another one that she ended up tapping to. Alexia Thainara's grappling, I totally underestimated it. It was really good. Anyway, Thainara won. We have a new Aileen Perez, for those who know. But in all seriousness, she looks very, very good for a Contender Series winner. Probably one of the best Contender Series winners in the UFC's debuts. And Molly retired. It was very tastefully done, and I think it was the right move for her considering her most recent performances, and the crowd was loving it. Yeah, so big up Alexa Thainara. It will be a shame that we don't see Molly McCann in the UFC anymore. Next fight. Next up we had Gunnar Nelson versus Kevin Holland. Now, I predicted that Gunnar Nelson was going to have his way with Kevin Holland, and I'll admit I was very wrong. I was very, very wrong. It came from a good place though, you gotta believe me. Kevin Holland won this one. He did it by decision. He almost got a finish, but we'll get into that. Round 1, Holland was doing his thing on the feet. If you've seen any Holland fight, you know how he fights. It's a very weird, distinct, but very unorthodox style. And he almost early in the fight got an omoplata on Gunnar Nelson, which made me think he's been training grappling. This might be a comeback. He didn't sink it in, and they got to a point where Gunnar Nelson stood up with Kevin sort of still half in this omoplata, and Nelson was just lifting Kevin like a suitcase, I guess. Kevin starts laughing, Gunnar starts laughing, pretty wholesome moment, and the photo will probably be shared everywhere. But yeah, to end the round, Holland drops Nelson very badly, and I fully thought he was going to follow up and finish him. Didn't manage to do that. The bell saved Nelson in that first round. Definitely went to Kevin. Round 2, started round primarily consisted of Nelson trying to take Holland down, with Holland really showing takedown defensibility in this fight. Nelson had maybe 3 takedowns out of like the 12 or so he shot. Maybe less than 12. I haven't looked at the stats, but he tried a lot of takedowns and he only got a few. Around 2 minutes left, Gunnar takes Holland down and maintains top control. And Nelson just looked tired on this round. He tried top position again at moments, but Kevin would always just rain punches from bottom and then try and get an arm bar, or try and rotate and try and do some sneaky submissions. And I gotta say, Kevin Holland's wrestling looked way better in this fight. I like him at welterweight. I don't think he should fight at middleweight. And this is just proof. Round 3 started with tie clinching, where Holland was just ripping at the body of Nelson before Nelson landed a takedown on Holland around halfway through the round. But once again, the body shots combined with sort of his such a long layoff, Nelson just gassed out this fight. Kevin dominated both on the ground and up on the feet, and yeah, he got a 29-28 decision. Now, I think Kevin's back. He looked really good this fight, but it also could be the fact that Gunnar didn't look ideal. Gunnar's a bit old and he's been off for about 2 years now, so it's hard to tell. But Kevin definitely did look improved, and I just hope he takes the fight game a little bit more seriously. But it is good to see him back and not sort of taking the piss when it comes to his matchups. Moving on to the co-main event. Actually, before we move on to the co-main event, let me just say how much I love this photo of Tom with the duck. When I saw this, this made me so happy. Anyway, next fight, Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Ulberg. So, I predicted that Carlos Ulberg would win this by decision. I thought it was going to be very, very close, and it was, but the judges didn't really see it that way. I'll get to that. But yeah, Carlos Ulberg won this one by decision, so I was 100% correct there, but not exactly. You'll see. Round 1, both fighters came out very patient and technical. This kind of reminded me of when Ulberg fought Ozdemir. He was very, very patient and selected his shots very, very carefully. Jan also wasn't. I was a bit worried they'd be slow, and that first round you couldn't really tell because he didn't throw much. He was throwing these leg kicks that you could see the swelling on Ulberg's legs. They were landing and they were doing some serious damage. And I think he actually takes that first round just from doing so much damage to the front leg, while Ulberg didn't really do much. Round 2, Ulberg starts sort of getting into it, and he's taking away Jan's forward pressure at moments. Around halfway through the second round, they start trading these combos in the pocket, with Ulberg finding sort of counters in the exit to add on to that. So he was sort of just landing more, and he'd always catch him with something big while they were exiting. The damage to the legs was starting to show now though, like very definitively in Ulberg, and he was sort of switching stances or sort of limping a little bit on that front leg. And there were moments in the round where Ulberg would be the one moving forward and putting Jan on his back foot. So you could kind of see the dynamics changing too. Bit of a swing round though. Round 3, Ulberg shoots in for a takedown that gets denied by Jan. Later in the round, Jan shoots in on Ulberg, doesn't work. Jan starts picking up the pace and landing more of the stiff jabs that he was landing in the sort of last round, but this time he was doing it more consistently. And he was wearing slightly more damage on his face by the end, because Ulberg was sort of turning it up as well, landing these big ones. Around like a minute left or 2 minutes, they really started throwing down. And I thought it was a very close decision. I had a split decision Ulberg. They gave a unanimous decision for some reason, but I'm not going to scream robber or anything. It was too close to really say who won definitively, but I think Ulberg did enough to justify him winning. Next opponent for Ulberg, I'm going to say maybe Yuri or maybe the winner of Hill Roundtree. Just in the meantime, while Pereira and Ankalaev most likely will rematch. I don't think he deserves a title shot off this. Jan, I kind of want him to retire. He didn't look amazing this fight. He looked a bit slow and like a bit too patient. But if he really wants another fight, I think a Rakic matchup would be kind of cool rankings wise. But if he wants sort of a one last win before he sends off, I think a Krylov versus Reyes winner, which would most likely be Nikita Krylov. I think that'd be a pretty cool fight to make as well. So those are my two options for who they should fight next. And just like that, we arrive at the main event, Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady. Now, I had it that Sean Brady was going to win this one by a decision. I thought it was going to be pretty close with Leon having a striking advantage, but overall Brady's wrestling advantage sort of carrying him through to that decision win. It was a lot more dominant than I thought it was, with Brady winning in an incredibly dominant fashion. So first thing I noticed in this fight, Leon's not wearing his custom shorts, which I thought was kind of weird. I don't know if that was an issue with the UFC or Leon and his management. I don't really know why. It's the first time we've ever seen that, so that's kind of interesting. Second thing I noticed was no glove touch. Now, I kind of missed a lot of the pre-fight stuff, so I don't know if there was genuine animosity between these two, but afterwards I saw a press thing which makes me think that Leon might be a bit of a sore loser, but we'll get to that. First round is basically only striking with a little exception near the end, so Leon's game plan for this one was definitely just using his height and reach to sort of get these straight jabs, these counters, and just try and keep his distance with Brady, who was a lot shorter and he could have definitely boxed from the outside with. Brady's plan for this fight was to blitz in and sort of hit Leon with these combos, 1-2 or 1-2-3, you know. And in the first round, it wasn't working as much. Leon was sort of hitting Brady whenever he'd try and blitz in, and Brady would sort of have to reset. But occasionally Brady would get a blitz in, hit a combo on Leon, and then clinch, in which he'd use the clinch to sort of break off and set up a new blitz in. But overall, I could see people scoring the striking for Leon in the first. I had it for Brady, but it was pretty close, and I think what secured the first round for Brady was him getting a takedown at the very final end of the round and maintaining top position for the rest of the round. I had it 1-0 Brady. Maybe that could be Leon's round if you really want to push it. Round 2 starts and Brady gets a double leg straight off the bat and holds Leon up against the fence. He takes him down, gets top position, gets back control, and from here he would just rotate between dominant positions and just ground and pound on Leon. And Leon just was unable to get Brady off on top of him. He tried sort of rolling around. Brady would get on the back and just start pounding the side of Leon's head. He'd try sort of bucking him off, but he'd just throw down these straights from the middle. And it kind of reminded me of what happened in the Leon-Bilal 2 fight, where Bilal would just get on top and just these ground and pound punches would just add up and cause Leon to sort of lose his composure. And I think Leon sort of wilts. He sort of gives up and he just sort of loses it. Especially in this fight, he looked very, very defeated even by the second round. One last thing I noticed was how yellow the bottom of Sean Brady's feet are. I don't know why. It was just something I noticed. And yeah, Sean secures this one. Second one in the bag for him. Third round. Leon's in his corner. His coach, the coach, you know him. Come on, man! He's on the outside of the cage. They must have locked him out. Had enough of him. Round 3 starts, Leon comes out throwing fast, but Brady is winning on the feet at the start of the round. He's starting to land these combos a bit more like fluidly, and he's hitting Leon a bit harder as each round goes on. And for some reason, Leon shoots on Brady. Now, I don't know why. I don't know if his corner told him to do it. I don't know what, but it was one of the worst decisions I've ever seen in UFC history, because Brady just stuffs a takedown, and he actually threatens Leon with a guillotine here, which I thought would be the end of the fight. Leon gives up top position to Brady on the ground, and the same thing as round 2 happens again. Brady gets on top and just starts pounding Leon with shots. Leon has no answer for Brady's constant pressure on the ground and gives away round 3, meaning at this point it's knockout or nothing for Leon. Round 4 starts and Brady keeps blitzing in on the feet and hitting Leon with these simple combos before taking him down, and right as it looks like it's going to be a repeat of round 1 and 3, on top position, Brady sinks in a guillotine submission from top position, where he sort of snakes his arm around Leon's neck, one arm, puts that one arm underneath his hip and grabs it with his other arm and just pulls. Leon taps to this, Brady wins. Brady's probably realistically now #1 contender. Does he get a title shot off this? I don't think so. It was a really dominant performance, but I think he needs one more test before we start throwing him in with the champ. And I think that should be Rakhmonov. Rakhmonov sort of had his chance. He got injured, which I know it's not his fault, but I think that means he should fight maybe one more fight now before Bilal. I think that should be Brady. I think stylistic matchup, it's a good fight, and it would be a good fight for a #1 contender spot. As for Leon, this was a really, really reflective loss for him, I suppose. He really needs to work on his ground game or just sort of come in with a new sort of mindset, because he looked defeated this fight. It reminds me of Bilal. He just looked like he wanted to give up halfway through. And I think he needs to start fighting some lower level comps to sort of build himself back up again. I say give him a Joaquin Buckley matchup. I know they're trying to make that matchup with Joaquin Buckley and Usman, but that's been for a while now, and I don't actually know if they're going to end up doing that. So maybe give him a Buckley matchup. If not, if Buckley does fight Usman, I'd say give him the loser of JDM Bilal, which I most likely think will be JDM. And that would match up rankings wise. And if you want to make a really fun fight, even though rankings wise it doesn't make any sense, give him Ian Gary. I think that'd be a really fun striking match. But either way, that's it. So that's it, guys. That was UFC London, Edwards versus Brady. This card was kind of weird. It had all the star power, but some of the performance left me a bit underwhelmed. It was sort of the opposite of what Vettori vs Elite 2 was, where Vettori vs Elite 2 took place in the Apex. It had very little star power, but yet the performances were just amazing. And this one it had all the star power, but I was underwhelmed by a few performances. Granted, there were some really, really fun fights on here, but there were some that were just a bit disappointing, including the main event. But overall, predictions-wise, I did pretty decent. I got 54% of my predictions on who would win correct, and of those win predictions I guessed the method by 29%, which is decent, I suppose. I actually did better than Cam this card. He got 46% of the win predictions correct, so that's one more for me. Overall, this card ranking, I'd have to put it in the bottom of B so far. I think it is slightly worse than UFC Fight Night Seattle, but it was a pretty good card, just with some sort of depressing fights on it. But yeah, what did you guys think of this card? Did you like it? Did you not? The decisions were interesting. Yeah. See you guys next week for UFC Fight Night Mexico. Let's go Urseg. Bye bye.